Aloha, 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 y'all. It is Sunday, the 20th of September. Uh, Sunday is ruled by the sun. Let me just put these cards down. I realized I should be talking about Dream Spell really quick. Today is a blue rhythmic eagle guided by vision. It is a crown chakra day. So if you're going to be doing meditations, be doing your Sahasrara kind of situation, right? So, Sahasrara is the crown chakra. Om. Do all your chakras if you can. The sun is in Virgo. We've only got a couple more days in Virgo season, and the moon is in Scorpio. I'm not surprised. And Mars being in retrograde, it's really fucking my life up. Mars is in Aries, Venus is in Leo, and Mercury is in Libra. Just so we kind of get the whole spiel shebang out there. Let's go ahead and pull a card for this Sunday and see what we got. Many cards, actually. So, hopefully, y'all are doing well. We've got the Ace of Wands. So, with the Ace of Wands, we have the ability to. Aces are the beginning of a thing, right? It's like the one card, right? And wands are fire. So, spirit. If you're an Aries, a Leo, or a Sagittarius, you're naturally going to resonate with the Ace of Wands, or Wands in particular, rather. And the Ace of Wands is the beginning of what? Creative projects, endeavors, spiritedness, kind of inspiration coming online, being a catalyst, right? Ace of Wands, flashes of creative insight, the drive to create something new. So it's ironic that Mars is in retrograde right now because we might have this inkling and itch to want to do something, but we can't really do it right now. Quick energy bursts, the passionate start of a new passion project. Ace of Wands, I am the catalyst. The Ace of Wands is filled with pure potential, the magical, combining, and creative element of fire. Notice in the artwork how the wand itself is pregnant with the potential of human life, the fetal stage of existence where anything is still possible. The twisted wood of this wand comes from a great mother tree, whose vast mycorrhizal network links itself to hundreds of other trees in the forest, passing nutrients such as carbon to feed her seedlings. For without wood there can be no fire. The wand is encased with a fiery coronal womb as if it is waiting to be birthed in the vastness of deep space. You are a conduit to be shaped by the immense heat, energy, and force. This card indicates the strong sense of self-belief, self-esteem, and vision you have in this moment or the immediate future. Don't let anything stand in your way as you resolutely step forward into the unknown. Fire burns brightly and will generate the highest and greatest of visionary aims and ambitions, but you are at the start of your journey, a novice, with much to learn and contend with. Trust me, even in relationships, I'm a novice. I just lost my place. But you are at the start of your journey, a novice with much to learn and contend with. You must use the energy from this wand to build a tidy fire, tending to it carefully and using your ingenuity to keep it alight whatever the conditions, internally or externally. You must discover how to temper, train, and stoke its ever-flickering and changing flame. Otherwise, it will pull at you from many directions, tantalizing and overwhelming you with every opportunity, taking you completely off of course. There is a danger that you could also be drawn too close, bewitched by its mesmerizing spell, and suddenly see your goals and dreams consumed in the flames. You are wise to familiarize yourself with each of the elements, air, earth, and water, so that you might draw on their balancing energies and natural law to keep the fire burning, letting the warmth and light illuminate your path. Create a special sacred space in your home, an altar perhaps, to place symbolic objects, pictures, and words that will keep the flame of inspiration alight. Visualize yourself achieving your success. What will you feel, see, hear, and sense? Create a vision board with your miracle project, whether it be a career, romance, planning a family, or at home at its center, emanating streams of activity and magic into your life. So even getting a vision board and moving towards that, putting the fire of your vision, Ace of Wands, being like, what do I want to have happen? Doesn't mean you have to make every plan and buy the ticket and go to the place or, all that kind of stuff, make the down payment. It more means like make a vision board. Like, and as I was discussing with my fiance today, it's a paradox. Be here, rooted firmly in the present moment, right? But also know that you're moving towards the future, and what you do creates to some degree, not fully, because you have to be open to the universe dancing with you, creates conditions for future timelines to exist. So you can't just sit there in a way and wait for things to happen. Like God helps those who help themselves. Like you want to be moving in a fire spirited way towards the future, but also in a way that you're not being consumed by the passion and desire of the future to the degree that you're not stable. That's why I was talking about the balancing of the elements, right? Where it's like have the groundedness of earth, have the air of mind, have the water of emotions, have the fire of spirit in balance when you're starting these projects, or dream boarding, or what vision boarding, or whatever you want to call these things. So Ace of Wands, flash of creative insight, the drive to create something new, quick energy burst, the passionate start of a new passion project. Interesting on a Sunday that we're getting the Ace of Wands, the fire, the beginning of fire, right? So that's cool. Let's go ahead and pull. I love how the sun is kind of dipping in and out. The lighting is changing quite a bit, even just here in my room. Must be clouds or something today here in Colorado. Hopefully you all are doing well. Tell me where you're watching from. It's always fun to see where like minds and friends are tuning in from. Today we've had this before, so I've seen this card in the past week or two. The 8 of Air, which I think is actually very appropriate for right now, right? 8 of Air. With the moon in Scorpio, we have to make sure that our passions don't get excessive, our obsessions don't emotionally guide us, like an obsession for security, an obsession for freedom, whatever the case may be. And even like my South Node is in Scorpio, so it's like habits of my past are coming up a lot recently. Not over worrying about that. So we've got the 8 of Air is on page 207. The ego, keywords here. The ego. Let me make sure you guys can kind of see what's going on. Hopefully. The ego, truth, power, responsibility, consequences, cause and effect, lessons learned, and memory. Key phrases. Ego does not always tell the truth, so your opinions aren't always facts. Effect will always follow a cause, i.e. what you do has an effect, right? So what you do matters. Time to change your ways. Admit that you made a mistake. Memory is imperfect. Like I tend to glorify, my hedonistic days to the point where I'm like, I miss kind of drinking. It's like, do I really miss hangovers? Not really. Self-justification does not mitigate harm. So even if you think you're right, don't hurt others in the process of proving to yourself you're correct. Consequences are inescapable. We all make mistakes. We are creatures driven by our egos. Our ego is in part our identity, the center of our consciousness. It is driven by our instincts and base desires and constrained by culture and society. It can have us feeling confident and certain, or it can have us feeling uncertain and afraid, both of which are illusions. Confidence is an illusion of the ego. It's all good no matter what, and fear is an illusion of the ego. It can also employ one of several different defense mechanisms to shield us from uncomfortable truths or a reality that we are not willing or ready to accept. So many of us are afraid of the truth. We can be so afraid of the truth that our ego will work hand in hand with our primal instincts and do what it can to protect us. If our ego is wounded or we have been taught to fear, the defense mechanisms employed may also be detrimental to good health, well-being, and our relationships with others. Our need to feel safe, to feel good, to be right, to be better, to be needed, and to be loved can result in the evidence at hand, reality, being distorted and shaped to fit our perception of events so that what we want to believe is in conflict with fact. Cognition is the process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. That's how you're cognitive, you're aware of things. Cognitive dissonance is a conflict that arises when an individual attempts to hold on to two conflicting beliefs or thought processes at the same time. So here I'm already going to diverge a little from this card because life is a paradox. Haley, my fiance, pulled a paradox card today. So it's like, guess what? We have to sit with this tension. That's part of like being wise and being human, right? So cognitive dissonance is part of the game, but I guess the part is delusion and attempting to hold two things that can be problematic and difficult, right? So holding on to two conflicting beliefs or thought processes at the same time. That conflict can give rise to mental, emotional, and physical discomfort, especially when our actions and our reason for behaving in a particular manner war with our natural sense of right and wrong and the moral code we are taught by those around us. Practicing a behavior that does harm, smoking or overeating, for example, can give rise to a cognitive dissonance. The desire, the ego, right, to continue doing something that everybody knows and cannot deny is harmful is rejected by a belief that it benefits the individual more than it harms them. So they're like, oh, I just want to smoke, and I like the buzz from the nicotine cigarette, even though I'm killing myself, right? Their parents or grandparents may have smoked for decades with no apparent ill effects, or the individual may come from a long line of overweight people who all lived happy, long lives. So maybe you just eat to your heart's content, and you're just fat, and so you're okay with that. You don't die because of it. The act of smoking helps one to keep their weight under control, while the act of eating makes the other feel sated and peaceful. There is an emotional or psychological hook, and so they continue, even though their choice to do so could result in their chronic ill health and even death. What they have is an addiction, and I know about addictions, and what their mind attempts to do is to make them feel good about the fact that they refuse to give up their addiction. They know and understand the potential consequences of the choices to continue, but refuse to consider them or choose to ignore them, responding in a defensive manner when those consequences are raised. However, the conflict that arises can be dispelled by doing one of several things: accept reality and then make changes in one's life in accordance to that truth, or by the continued use of self-justification and other defense mechanisms in order to make ourselves feel better, our egos, continue to do something or believe something that is doing us or others harm. The self-justification and rationalization increases our self-esteem and allows us to see our thoughts and actions in a favorable light. That's why people don't think their shit stinks, right? They're like, oh, I do what I want because I have an opinion, and I'll back up this opinion with my own justifications. This is natural and normal behavior. We all do it sometimes or others. But while we can embrace a natural and normal state of denial, we are unlikely to escape the consequences of our actions. So you can live in your head and be like, oh, if I smoke, whatever, it doesn't matter. But one day, like, the piper's going to come. You're going to have to pay the tax man, as they say. We can deny and suppress, we can rationalize, we can even justify, but every action gives rise to a consequence, and those consequences can be both favorable or not. If you do something that you consciously or unconsciously know to have a potentially harmful consequence and you choose to ignore it or believe that it won't manifest, then the aid of error comes to caution you to think again. There is a price to be paid for all that you do, no matter what your reason or intentions, and you alone are responsible for the consequences born of your actions. In everything you do, cause and effect will play out. You can influence this to a point, but you can't escape it, causality. It is inevitable, and the consequences unavoidable. The Eight of Air is a very challenging card because it symbolizes the need to look at your beliefs and behavior and question them. Are you hiding from an uncomfortable reality? Is it time to take responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and consequences they give rise to, and to see them for what they really are? It is a time to be humble, that's a big deal, submitting the ego, and accept that you might have projected your feelings about yourself onto another. So let's say, for example, I like traveling, and I want to travel, and then all of a sudden people in my life don't want to travel so much. Am I going to get bitter about that because I'm projecting my ego needs onto them? Are these real needs? Are these wants? What's the consequences of this, right? And that's just, how people have different reality tunnels. So we have to come to congruence. But here's the beauty of the paradox. It's all good. There's nothing outside, even the mistakes we make have a lesson. The consequence is wisdom, hopefully, ultimately. Have you ever made a mistake or chosen a path or a belief that has not served you well, and instead of accepting this painful truth, allowed your ego to weave a reality that allows you to pretend? It is time to face the facts. Don't worry about losing face by admitting to your humanity. Contrary to the belief that others will think less of you, in most situations a simple apology and admitting that you made a mistake or have been protecting yourself from a harsh truth will earn people's respect. Therefore, accept that maybe you don't know as much as you think you do, and that you might be hiding behind a false reality created by the ego that serves only to make you feel good. And I've been doing that with my whole life with hedonism. I'm like, I'm free to do whatever I want. It's like, you've probably missed a lot of opportunities. The consequence is, of the freedom of drinking or smoking to my heart's content, has been short-sightedness, right? Your ego might have your best interest at heart, but it will offer self-justification in order to make you feel good about your behavior, in order to protect you from harsher truth, that your actions may have been misguided or harmful. Like, we might be wrong sometimes, and in some weird way, there's no wrong, but it's like, you see my point. There's a plethora of options. It's not either or, it's both and. So there's a spectrum, right? The path to enlightenment is made up of our mistakes and the lessons learned from them along the way. Wisdom is earned, not bestowed. So don't think that your shit doesn't stink. Think, every opinion you have is just that, an opinion. But be willing to step into the fire of life in a way that you bring heart to it, right? Bring your heart and not maybe your mind right now. With the sun in Virgo and the moon in Scorpio, what we have is the opportunity to maybe burn through addictions, burn through our ego in a way that actually serves us in a healthful way, a healthy way, and a helpful way, and others, right? But we have to come to real terms with the fact that we might be deluding ourselves or addicted to patterns and justifying them constantly and being our own worst enemy and preventing a lot of timelines from happening just because of our ego, which is trying to help us in its own way, but might ultimately be thwarting us. And once again, it's a paradox. Ultimately, it's all good. So the lessons you're learning are your lessons, but don't just keep going to the same school and go to summer school 5 times in a row because you're unwilling to learn the one thing. Be adaptive, right? And be inspired to change. It's not just about holding on because you're a strong person. I mean, sometimes holding on means holding your ground. Sometimes the bigger path is to letting go. Ultimately, we have to submit to life. And there's a paradox: submission to life, but also being a monad of being, going through life with preferences and opinions and desires and all this stuff. This is why Buddhism is desire is the root of a fucking issue here. If you cling, if your ego clings to these things and thinks it will only be satiated through a certain relationship, or it will only be satiated through a certain drug or experience or destination or belief or whatever, it's if I read my Bible 100 times and I'll go to heaven. It's that's a belief. If you can cling to certain beliefs so much that you miss out on life as it actually is, right? So let's hopefully step into the fire of becoming in such a way that we're initiates of the ever-present now, right? Constantly renewing ourselves, renewing our minds, renewing our spirit, becoming new, fire, right? Ace of Wands. But in order to do this properly, you have to kind of come to a humble point and say, maybe I'm being led by desire and not by my higher self, right? Because this is kind of the higher self, and it's you can make choices, but are you stabbing yourself? Are you cutting yourself? Are you hurting yourself and just making excuses? We're I hate my life, so I'm going to cut myself, or I really hate my boss, so I'm going to drink in excess, or whatever. I've been guilty of this, so I'm not just hating. We try to distract ourselves, and in the paradoxical way, life is meant to be a distraction to be lived, but there's moments where you can kind of get in ruts, I guess you could say, and just kind of hold on loop pattern, like a plane that never lands. It's just circling the airport. And it's in order to land, you got to make some changes, or you got to believe it's the time to fly is over in that sense. The time to land has come, and all times. This is why it's paradoxical to kind of sometimes talk about the stuff, because I'm also trying to figure things out in my own way in life, and it's a both and. It's not either or. It's a paradox. So on the one hand, we are temporal beings experiencing brains and bodies, and pleasure is okay, but at the same time, being addicted to pleasure or being addicted to our minds, our opinions, and being addicted to feeling good, quote unquote, or avoiding feeling good, right? Like masochism and stuff, or just restraint to the point of asceticism. It's the middle path. That's the whole point. It's the middle. It's both. So trying to find, get honed in a real way. Shamanic journey is what we've got in Galactic Heritage. Number 90, cetacean whale. Whales are pretty cool. And shamanic journey is essentially, this is Gandalf's stuff. We're initiating right now into a shamanic journey. And it doesn't mean you have to take psychedelics. Life is fucking psychedelic as it is. Deep breathing can show you that. And, mindfulness. But also don't just think that, the shamanic journey is the only, Bilbo Baggins was I like my Shire and I love my life and I am convinced that this is how I want it to be. And it's the greatest adventure he had was being pushed out of his comfort zone. It wasn't easy, right? But if he had listened to his ego the whole time, he'd have just sat there smoking his pipe and not grown for it. But the universe tends to confront us with change and experience and opportunities. The dream is as wild or as bland as we prefer, and that's kind of how it goes, right? So the journey of life, the shamanic journey. Shamanic journey, parallel timeline, whale, number 90. Shamans teach us to navigate through our deepest unconscious in order to confront our shadows and release stagnant beliefs and habits. Once again, you take a light and hide it, take the light in the cave, right? This is kind of like that, taking a torch and being all right, let's go where we're going to go. We're starting a new adventure. Let's go see what's in the Indiana Jones cave. And instead of sitting there being like, well, we don't need to go on adventures, or saying, I have everything I need right now, like that's the ego. Or even being afraid, like fear, prejudging all that stuff, it has its place in a weird, way, all is good thing. But at the same time, try to realize that you might be your own worst enemy. So shamans teach us to navigate, and our own worst enemy is ourselves, our shadows, right? And to integrate them. So shamans teach us to navigate through our deepest unconscious, and that's what we're not aware of. What we don't know, unconscious, in order to confront our shadows and release stagnant beliefs and habits, creating profound transformation. Whale consciousness, which is connected to Sirius, is shamanic in nature. When we work with it, we must look into the mirror and see the false self. Whales are providing, and that's once again with the aid of air, talking about like, are you creating a life where you're like, well, all I want to do is have 2 glasses of wine at the end of the day and watch Friends and go to work and put on a smile and stuff. It's like, is that your authentic self, or is that your ego saying, hey, we just want to not rock the boat and fucking find some comfort in security and routine? That's one end of the spectrum. Or are you going around being like, I've got to go live in the most crazy environments and do the craziest drugs and go to the craziest rave scenes and I never have stability and all that stuff? Being the other extreme, it's like, is that your ego self saying push, and it's like, even explorers have to like re-up on their supplies in a depot at some point, right? Or else they're fucked. So we got to be kind of confronting our inner reality here. When we work with it, we must look into the mirror and see the false self, that ego, because the ego is just a construct of for self-protection, essentially. It's what old Georgie is in Cloud Atlas. That's the shadow, negatively polarized in a sense, of ego, where it's like, don't you dare go help that guy. Here comes the bad guy. They're going to eat you. It's like that fear can help us in a way, but if we live and listen to that, we'll live very limited and restricted lives in a certain way, and we won't actually embark on adventures. If Frodo had been like, or rather Bilbo had been like, oh my gosh, I just like fucking sitting here and I refuse to be a burglar for Gandalf and his crew, he wouldn't be better for it, right? It's ultimately all good in some way, but that's not the journey he pre-incarnationally chose, and now I'm conflating a whole lot of metaphors and stuff, so I'll try to stop. Whales are providing the service on a large scale for Earth at this time, but in a very subtle way, and mostly through your dreams. You've pulled this card because you now have a connection with whale consciousness, now or in the past, and it is calling to you once again. Commentary. Whale consciousness connected to Sirius represents group consciousness. Each whale is actually a group unified field, like a group of souls. They swim in the deep waters of Earth as a symbol of the deep unconscious in which our true identity as unified beings dwells. They serve as a reminder that we too are part of a unified existence beyond our limited lives as humans. Whales are the first group species that humans encounter before becoming a galactic species. As humans adjust to the whale consciousness and open themselves to what it represents, we prepare ourselves to acknowledge our own true state of unity. Because Earth is going through a powerful transition in consciousness now, whale consciousness guides us through a transition from polarity and fragmentation to unity and oneness. So from ego self to like, it's all good, right? And that's the journey. If this card came up in your spread, then some part of your being is accessing this whale consciousness to help your spiritual growth and heal the fragmentation within you. This card is called Shamanic Journey because whenever you use the energy of deep unconscious and are moving towards a profound integration and transformation with the help of interdimensional guides, it is indeed a shamanic journey, one filled with shifting realities, changing paradigms, and magical potential. Magical potential. That's the Ace of Wands. We're entering a new initiation phase. We have to trust ourselves, but we have to know ourselves fully and own who we are before we can really enter that journey properly. If you, like, wherever you go, there you are. If you bring your trauma and bring your issues, it doesn't matter if you're fucking in Hawaii or in a gulag, or, you're going to be who you are. And that's a tough trip, but, like, we have to understand that, right? So shifting realities, changing paradigms, and magical potential. Whether you feel this energy working with you or not is unimportant. So your belief about the situation is kind of unimportant. It is what it is, right? If you wish, hold the image of a whale before you sleep and ask for whatever guidance can be shared with you at this time. Then pay attention to your dreams. That's kind of an interactive exercise. Give it a whirl, kids. It reminds me of The Big Lebowski, where he's listening to whale songs in the bathtub when it's like, hey, nice marmot, that scene. That's this kind of situation. We're being initiated. So and into a magical, deeper, our shadow in a sense. I think we're being initiated with the moon in Scorpio, with Mars in retrograde. We're having a moment of pause to see what we've been avoiding in ourselves. How have we been deluding ourselves? Have we been clinging on to security at the cost of adventure? Have we been pushing the envelope so much that we don't have any balance in life, like, if you just go to the bar every night and spend all the money you have in your wallet, like, it's going to catch up with you. Consequences, right? That's what it's talking about. And if you just sit around and never do anything exciting, like, these are the extremes, coming to the middle is the point. If you just sit around doing nothing exciting, you might want to kill yourself, or you might not actually live life. Like, you're here to be incarnated, to experience embodiedness, to experience life as a playground, right? So try to bring that sense of play into the picture. This is the permission slip, if you want to put it that way, to be playful, but play with fire responsibly. That's this point. Like, don't just, like, blow things up and think the cops won't come, right? Shamanic journey is telling us that we're being initiated, and to trust that this process is one of reflection and going through the unknown, not to be afraid of it. We have guides. Whether we believe it or not, we are being guided, right? That's kind of like Gandalf was always there when they needed them. Even when they didn't expect it. It's like, oh my gosh, we're climbing trees and the goblins are going to burn us alive. And then the eagles and Gandalf come, right? So it's like, like, guides and angels, however you want to put this, are among us, helping us. Signs, synchronicities are there for those with eyes to see. Hold on loosely enough that you allow your ego to believe that, and you will be initiated more deeply onto the shamanic journey that is life. And the color of the movie you're experiencing is up to you. That's the first person kind of power we have. We influence it. So we're presented with realities, and we can say, this is a horrific zombie apocalypse movie, or we can say, this is an insane Aeon shift, or we could say, we're going into a Tron world. Like, we get to choose the coloration. That's our input, right? That's how we light. It's almost like lighting. Like, lighting can change. Like, a room is a room is a room, but if you have, like, ambient lighting and all, like a fire, it's one mood and feeling. And if you have, like, strobe lights and something like that, it's another. It's all the same space, right? So what light are you bringing to the adventure? Because that's greatly going to impact your situation. But also make sure that you're, like, being real about it, like, and you're not deluding yourself, or, like, just kind of playing it safe or playing it extreme because you're an extreme person. Or, you don't have to, like, cover your body in tattoos just to, what I read today was a card. Haley pulled Paradox and I pulled Going Home, or Journeying Home, or something like that, or Leaving Home is what it was called, Leaving Home. And it was like, you got to do what you want to do in life, basically, to be who you are and individuate, but make sure you're not being guided by rebelliousness for the sake of it, because that's usually coming from a trauma place. Like, if we're just reacting and saying, fuck that, I don't do that, fuck you, it's like, we haven't come to some level of peace or understanding with that, within that paradigm of reality ourselves, right? Whoa. I just realized how much lighter, I guess, this one screen needs to be. All right, cool. So, somewhere in the middle, right? That middle path. Anyway, the animal we're getting is Beauty, the swan. It's all good. It's all beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful journey we're on. Even the pain is beautiful in a weird way. And I'm not a masochist. It's all meant to be experienced. But we want to be seeing it through a prism of clarity and truth, and not self-delusion. And that happens, so don't think you're above it. But Beauty, the swan. Beauty is all around us if we care to observe it. If we're on a beautiful journey, we're on a beautiful journey of initiation, if we care to see it that way. And if we sit around saying, oh my God, life's happening to me, and oh my gosh, I'm getting stabbed by life the whole time, it's like, that's your perspective. You think anybody has it easy? Jesus got nailed to a piece of wood, right? Like, Buddha had to leave his fucking wife and kid forever. Like, nobody goes through life without suffering. So don't try to, like, avoid suffering, right? But don't also, like, there's wisdom in the suffering, and try to learn the lesson quickly, or else you'll just kind of be stuck in that part of the dream, the shamanic journey, for a lot longer than you need to be. Beauty is all around us if we care to observe it. The natural world provides so much of it. However, remember, beauty is highly subjective. Love yourself first and know yourself. Look for beauty in the situations around you. Ask and your questions will be answered. So even just, ask a question and then be still and just kind of wait. And you're going to get guided. Hopefully these cards are guiding you in some way, right? But at some level, we're all our own oracle. We're all our own Gandalf. And simultaneously, we're all our own Bilbo, where we're like, I just want to do what I want. My ego is comfortable and set in its ways, and I'm just going to, do my thing. And it's like, it's somewhere in the middle. Challenge yourself with Gandalf and go out the greatest adventure of life, but then also, like, be willing to be stable and grounded. It's all the elements in balance, right? Mythos. It is the Greek god of light, music, healing, and prophecy, Apollo, who is the most closely linked with the swan. Apollo's mother, Leto, caught the eye of the king of the gods, Zeus. She refused him, so he turned his form into a swan and seduced her. I don't know how a swan would seduce a woman more than a man, but okay. Leto gave birth under duress on the island of Delos to twins, both archers, the formidable Artemis and the beautiful Apollo. As the god of music, Apollo loved to hear great musicians play and would often come down to earth to hear and bless great music. One of his favorites was a human called Cygnus. For many years, Zeus listened to Cygnus's sublime music until one day Cygnus died. Because guess what? Cause and effect. We're born, we die. You can't escape that. Even though transhumanists want to make you think you can. Death is beautiful, right? Just as much as life is beautiful. And we only appreciate life in contrast to the death and suffering, right? Sad that he would never hear such music again, Apollo turned Cygnus into a swan and elevated him into into the night sky among the stars. This is how the constellation Cygnus came to appear in the sky. As a healer, referred to by the word paeon, and healer is the Virgo sun, right? That is the healing thing. And what we're doing is healing what? Psychological wounds, essentially, and trauma and damage and denial and maybe even sexual and drug abuse, that kind of stuff, alcoholism, with the moon in Scorpio. As a healer, Apollo had a chariot pulled by swans, where possible, his temples had swans that made their homes there. Swans are associated with love and beauty in the Greek culture and were sacred, protected animals. It was also believed that swans would be mute until they were close to death. Then they would sing a stunningly haunting and beautiful song to the gods. This is the origin of the term swan song. The animal, there are 7 living species of swan, all having similar physical characteristics, including the long, elegant neck. 5 species are found in the northern hemisphere and 2 in the southern. All swans at one time were thought to be white, but then the Australian black swan was discovered. Oh my gosh. You mean through the process of discovery, right, being willing to be open-minded ultimately, our egos were challenged. And we could have said, all swans are white, and really held that belief. And it's like, guess what, kid? Not so. Enjoy that ride. Enjoy the ride of life and observe as much details as you can with holding on loosely simultaneously, both and, right? There are black swans in the southern hemisphere in Australia, but, I'm sure some uppity taxologist or taxonomist, British, whatever, 18th, 17th century person was like, there are only white swans. And it's like, all right, hold on loosely to that. Straight up. So, swans do normally mate for life, so they are committed, yay. But if a mate dies or is unable to breed, the other swan will find a new mate. So adaptive. Once constructed, nests are vigorously defended. Sounds like some Scorpio moon shit. Right? It's like, I will kill anybody who will come into my nest. There has even been an episode recorded of a human drowning when attacked by a swan defending its nest. That's pretty ratchet. The magic. Swan magic is pure and graceful. It is perfect to use for love workings and also when you wish to find more beauty in our world. Everyone could do with a bit more beauty in their lives. And here's the kicker, kids. It's all beautiful. We have to have the eyes to perceive it. We have to not be listening to our left hemisphere, our ego, logical mind so much that we find issue in everything. We have to embrace the journey, the shamanic journey we're on, and our dreams, and the synchronicities and signs, all that, our intuition. This is what we've chosen to be embarked on. Ace of Wands, and every moment is a new journey, and to allow that fresh breath of, when the wind hits your face at the beach, and you're like, this day is possible, or anything like that. I mean, I've traveled a lot, so I can think of all sorts of circumstances where this has happened. We're here to witness the beauty in all of its shades and colors. And in a way, what we'll find is it's all good. It's all good anyway, whether we believe it or not in our beliefs. Our egos get in the way of that, right? Our opinions of things. Symbology is the lyre, Cygnus constellation, Apollo's chariot, Apollo riding a swan, Leto with a swan. Their status ranges from least concern to threatened, so they're all over the place in terms of that. Let's go ahead and pull an art oracle card and a crystal card, and then I'll play a song today instead of jamming on my electric guitar. That feels better. That feels right. There's no better. So Caravaggio, this is some Scorpio mood looking shit, right? Beheaded people. Caravaggio. He's an Italian from the 1500s. By today's standards, Caravaggio would have a medical diagnosis, like he's insane. A genius, he was also belligerent and homicidal. That is the shadow, potentially, of Scorpio moon situation, where it's like you can take things, extremely and kill. Like Pluto's rules Scorpio's death, right? So you can emotionally kill things needlessly or needfully, depending on your opinion. His frequent travels were due to law evasion, not wanderlust. So he wasn't like, I want to travel. He was like, I got to escape from the cops. Plague left him a young orphan. Immense talent won him high society's patronage. Like his life, his paintings are passionate and bloody contrasts, light and dark, innocence and brutality, with lots of severed heads. Example, David with the head of Goliath. While killing it professionally, Caravaggio literally killed a pimp. So death was a very big part of his life, it seems. He then made his final masterpieces as a fugitive and died shortly after being jumped by vengeful assailants who busted his face and eyesight. Classic Caravaggio. Once again, there are consequences to our actions. So if you're just running around doing crazy shit and evading the law and beating up hookers or whatever he was doing, vengeful pimps coming to kill him, like there was a price to be paid for that. His journey, his dream was rather ratchet, but he probably lived in a passionate way, in an adventurous way. Even though wanderlust wasn't what was driving it, it was more like the passions of, his mental situation. And in the weirdest way, guys, it's like a color in a crayon box. It's like, it might be a weird color, but it's still a color. There's beauty to the life that we just described, even though it's insane. There's lessons to be learned from Caravaggio, right? So it says, try to keep violence metaphorical. With the moon in Scorpio, with Mars in retrograde, with Mercury in Libra, with the sun in Virgo, what we really should be doing is trying to practically embody balance and peace, seeing the paradox of reality, not holding on to our opinions so much that we hurt others or ourselves, and trying to keep the violence metaphorical. You don't have to get in fights all the time. You're only fighting with yourself in some way. And basically, if you get into a confrontation, it's like, are you choosing to let your ego win or your heart? Because the heart knows that all is one, loving your enemies, be here now. That's the heart, right? That's the spirit. Whereas the mind is like, oh, they said that shit, I'm going to go slash their tires. Oh, they pissed me off, I'm going to do this. Oh, they, whatever. Like, that's ego. That's reaction. We want to not be reactionary, and reacting, combining words now. And with the moon in Scorpio, we might be very quick to emotionally react from a very sensitive place, because Scorpio moon is a very sensitive situation. So right now we might be having weird dreams and sensitivities, and our shadow coming up in a very real way. So hold on, try to keep the violence metaphorical, because know that you're only hurting yourself, and in some weird abstract way, it's all good. But like, do you want to dream a dream where you're like a prison guard in Auschwitz, or do you want to dream a dream where you're like a botanist in South America, or do you want to dream a dream where you're like, like, there's so many colors of dream, and none are quote wrong, but it's like, yo, which dream do you want to cure? Like, violence is not the option. And we're kind of getting from a place, I think, as a species, where we're not going to be react from a passionate place with our clubs and beat each other. Like, at the beginning of what it meant to be human, maybe it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's like, oh my gosh, I know what a bone is. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go kill this other monkey. We're getting out of that place. That served its time, its function, right? And we were starting to realize that our egos, a part of our mind, essentially our brain, has only been hurting ourselves and others, right? So we have to stop listening to that and just reacting. It's about responding and not reacting. Response is coming from a place of togetherness and balance, Mercury and Libra, where it's like, okay, I will say the right thing at the right time, and not just stabbing because it feels good, Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane. I can't believe how much lighting changing is happening. So this is kind of a weird video in terms of lighting, for sure, on my iPad. I'm not sure so much about this other one. We're on a journey of becoming, so don't sweat so much. Enjoy the fucking ride, right? And be open to signs and wonders and intuitions, but try to keep the self-violence, try to keep your self-hatred and your divisions and your opinions that make you react in such a way that you become hostile, metaphorical. Go punch a pillow, go journal, go shout into your pillow, whatever. Don't take it out on yourself or your fellow man or animals or whatever. Beauty is all around us if we choose to see it. The stone we're getting is a meteorite. Or no, it's tektite. I lied. Tektite. What it is, tektite describes any natural glass formed as the result of meteor impact. That's why I thought about that. Result of meteor impacts with our blue planet. Modern science deems the stones terrestrial in composition, i.e. of this Earth, Virgo sun, very much there, but believers and ancient astronauts have other theories. There's conspiracy theories, the mystery, moon and Scorpio, right? Who needs it? I hail from a star in Orion's belt, people. Those currently overburdened by resentments, and I'm dealing with resentments all the time, so I've got to once again, deal with my shadow and be like, I shouldn't hold on to these opinions. I should just flow like the water. Be water, my friend. Where to put it, on your UFO landing pad or beside your meditation cushion. When to use it, when gravity feels extra heavy and it's time to initiate launch sequence and blast off. When you're bored with Earth life and want to expand your intergalactic horizons, this is raise your vibrations. That's literally probably what the best way to describe this card, the Ace of Wands, is raising your vibrations. The wand, your spot, your spine, even in a sense, like your Jed, raise your Kundalini, raise your vibes, raise your spirit in your body, right? We are spirits in a body. We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience. So be careful how you listen to your ego. There's part of our machine that tries to help us, but it doesn't really help us. It helps us feel good about what we do, but it doesn't maybe help us all the time make the decisions. It's all good anyway, whatever. But while you're initiating on this journey, this path, be real with yourself and not self-deluded with the 8 of air. We can tell ourselves exactly what we want to hear and then just get into an echo chamber of our own thoughts, reinforcing it. Be like, yeah, they deserve that. That's why I treat them this way. Yeah, fuck them. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's your ego. That's not your heart. Or you can be like, oh, yeah, I don't have issues. I'm going to keep doing this behavior in spite of the consequences, in spite of how it makes other people feel, in spite of all the whatever, right? And it's like, that's your ego perpetuating that. You got to be careful with that shit. So, shamanic journey is telling us that we're on a journey to listen to our dreams, to listen specifically to group consciousness of the whales, right? And before you go to bed, be like, okay, whales, tell me what's up. Let's take a deep dive here. And you might find yourself surprised with what you find, because the beauty is everywhere. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There is no ugly. I mean, ugly is a perception of the ego being like, ew, I don't like that. It's an opinion. It's like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and we're here to be the witness of the I am energy, witnessing all colors of things. What we choose is karmic. Maybe there's lessons beyond us. This gets into, karma, predestination, DNA, starseed missions, whatever. There's all sorts of flavors of beauty. But at the same time, what we have to know is that all things are good, and you can at any point resonate from your heart, hopefully. And today is a crown chakra to get into the I am energy and be like, what does the universe need to experience through me? How can I not distort this too much? Because the more we attach to our opinions, our bodies, our hopes and dreams, all this stuff, that's beautiful. But like ultimately, like you have a function outside of yourself. Like it's not all about you. But our ego wants to say it's all about me. So we got to be careful. Metaphorically, keep the violence there, not physical. Anger is okay and passion's okay, and sometimes even, lashing out happens, like war happens, but like it's not ideal. That's our ego getting hold of it and acting through our impulses. Like try to keep it metaphorical. Try to keep your habits healthy and release. Like go exercise. This is why people exercise. I skateboard right now and bike and stuff like that. Like that gets energy working through your body. If you have all this pent up energy, you're gonna be like a fucking, a mousetrap waiting to snap, and you're going to snap a lot more readily if you don't get it through your system. Whereas if you kind of exert energy physically and do breathing meditations and stuff and kind of certain things, you can actually circumvent that entire part of your brain that's causing you to fight or flight. The fight, we're not saying run from everything, but like fighting everything is not a good look either. Raise your vibrations, right? So let's play a song. I've already picked one, and because it was in my head when I talked to my fiance this morning, so I'm going to play it because it's in my fucking head. How practical, right? This is a song from the 80s that I've heard an electronic cover of. Oh my gosh, what's happening? It's like not responding. I'm curious as to why this wouldn't respond, because it's on my new computer. There we go. Well, kind of. One second. Okay. That works now. Odd. Odd indeed. All right, so Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler. And in a weird way, like the mind can eclipse the heart, so we have to be very discerning and be like, is my mind taking me places my heart doesn't want to go? But we have to also be willing, it's a paradox, be willing to go where the mind doesn't, the heart will always be guiding us, but are we listening to our mind more, our heart? You see my point. Like Bilbo and got the journey his heart wanted, whether he was conscious of it or not. That's why Gandalf manifested the opportunity. It wasn't forced upon him. It was him experiencing himself through an abstraction. So anyway. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming round. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. Every now and then I get a little bit nervous. The best of all the years have gone by. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I fall apart. And I need you now tonight. And I need you more than ever. If you only hold me tight, we'll be holding on forever, and we'll only be making it right, 'cause we'll never be wrong. Together we can take it to the end of the line. Your love is like a shadow on me all the time. I don't know what to do, I'm always in the dark, living in a powder keg and giving off sparks. I really need you tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight. Once upon a time I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart. Nothing I can do. Total eclipse of the heart. Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I fall apart. And I need you now tonight. And I need you more than ever. And if you only hold me tight, we'll be holding on forever. And we'll only be making it right, 'cause we'll never be wrong. Together we can take it to the end of the line. Your love is like a shadow on me all the time. I don't know what to do, I'm always in the dark, living in a powder keg and giving off sparks. I really need a night. Forever's gonna start tonight. Forever's gonna start. Once upon a time I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart. Nothing I can do. Total eclipse of the heart. Once upon a time there was light in my life, but now there's only love in the dark. Nothing I can say. Total eclipse of the heart. Total eclipse of the heart. Total eclipse of the heart. Turn around, bright eyes. Turn around, bright eyes. something. So the idea here, whoa, oh my gosh, can I put it down safely? Yes. The idea here is we have, I mean, this is a weird song to play with this card setup, but the idea is that we're entering a domain of illumination and adventure. And we have to realize that we're not in the dark and love isn't gone and the adventure isn't over, right? We might be feeling very heavy with Mars in retrograde, with the sun in Virgo, which can be heavy and earthen, right? With Mercury in Libra, where we can be indecisive, and with the moon in Scorpio, where we're like very deep and powerfully emotionally reactive, possibly. Let's keep that love light on. Let's turn around, bright eyes. Let's turn this shit around, right? Where we have the option to look at life as an ever evolving journey, but we don't want to be deluding ourselves, right? We don't want to be committing to things that hurt us. We don't want to be giving excuse to things and behaviors that ultimately aren't getting us to where we need to go. In the bigger picture, it's all good, but then there's like a spectrum of options. So it's like, do you want to get there quickly? Do you want to suffer a long time? Do you never want to get there? That kind of stuff. And there's a million options in between, right? So it's like, don't be just living in your ego, always self-justifying. Our egos do great things. Be like, yeah, you just said the smartest thing. Good job. Fuck them. Or, yeah, you just did the right choice. There's no mistakes. There's no consequences. It's like, that's not, that's why we have a Jiminy Cricket on our shoulders, which is actually our hearts, ultimately, trying to remind us to get out of our fucking heads. Our fears, our obsessions. Scorpio moon can be very obsessive, right? And we have to realize that we're on a shamanic journey, right? And some of the lyrics of that song were very Scorpio, but where it's like, we know in ego kind of, we could, if we have each other, nothing can go wrong. We know we're only making it right. It's very obsessive with the ego form of codependence almost in that song. It's like, it's a funny song. I just like this tune, and I'm realizing like all the weird syncs to it. We have to embrace all the ups and downs of the journey. It's all good. There is no real bad. It's all beautiful, right? It's all good. But at the same time, there's different types of beauty. There's the beauty of a guy ripping off a guy's head in a painting. Oh yeah, that's really violent and weird. And there's the beauty of like just a serene landscape. There's the beauty, it's all beautiful and it all has its place. Figure out where you want to be vibrating and go there and honor that process, but be open-minded and willing enough to experience adventure, because if you don't leave your shire, sometimes you won't get the sting and the ring. You get my point. Like it's all good. So your Gandalf will find you. Your mission will find you, but you have to be out of your head enough to not think that you're already always there. You have to be open-hearted and childlike enough to be like, what's the new? Where's the new direction? Where's this all going? So Caravaggio is saying, let your violence be metaphorical. I'm having the weirdest lighting today, so it's all over the place on one of these. Raise your vibration is what Tektai is telling us. So how do we get into our heart? How do we not get shattered when love is, oh my gosh, now I'm just alone in the dark and love is alone and I had you and now I don't have you and all this stuff of that song. It's like, well, if you're raising your vibrations, you're going to get to this place of it's all good and everything is a lesson, and to hold on loosely, to engage with reality, but not to depend on reality. Because you're going to die at some point. This whole reality is going to fucking shift for you. It's shifting right now. We're having a collective death. We're having an apocalypse. So it is what it is. Today's a crown chakra day. Try to get into your I am mode and be like, wow, I'm a witness. I'm embodied, but I'm a witness. I'm a puppet of consciousness in a sense. And I get to influence the journey and dream that consciousness gets to learn from in a weird way, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. This was kind of long-winded, but you kind of get the picture. Hit me up for readings if you want. They're always fun. Check out the podcast. We've got some podcasts today. I don't even know who the guests are off the top of my head, but I think we have two. And yeah, just try to understand that life's a journey to be engaged in, but that journey is even an illusion at some point. The farther you travel, the less one really knows. But these journeys are ourselves experiencing ourselves in an abstracted way to come to new levels of wholeness, which was already there. Do you see the paradox? You're already perfect, yet we go through the process of becoming in time, i.e. life, to experience that in new and different ways. It's a paradox, guys. It doesn't make it comfortable, but it's a yin-yang. There's good and bad, there's bad and good. The Auschwitz guard is in the image of God and a human worthy of value as much as the person they're persecuting. So let's try to keep our violence metaphorical, and if we can actually do the shadow work and confront our bullshit, we don't project it on others. We don't make people disappointing to us. We don't do the expectations thing, right? Highest excitement, no expectations. The best way to fly. Hopefully that makes sense. Adios.